Recorded Books and One Click Digital present The Fix by Kawan, narrated by Patricia R. Floyd. Prologue. Persia felt like she was falling forever. The wind felt good, like it was caressing her tenderly. For a few seconds, all was right with the world, and she was wrapped in her mother's love. That came to a crashing halt when Persia hit the ground, and it felt like she broke every bone in her body. She lay there, in too much pain to move, watching the snowflakes fall across the glare of the dirty yellow streetlight. It made them look like pretty yellow diamonds. She wanted to reach up and grab a handful, but her arms didn't seem to work. It made them look like pretty yellow. Anymore. As she lay there, feeling her life drain away, she thought about her mother and how she'd treated her. She wished she understood that all Persia wanted was a little love and one grand adventure. Oh, okay. And wished that she'd been a better daughter, but she'd never had the chance. She also thought of Chucky and how he hadn't been there to save her from this horrible fate. She wondered if he would cry when he found out what happened. There was so much that they still hadn't had a chance to do. Tears of regret began to roll down Persia's face. She didn't want to die alone in the snow. The bells of the church rang loudly. It was midnight, her 18th birthday. She began to weep heavily and sang, "Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear Persia." The words trailed off as the darkness claimed her and ended her adventure. Part 1. Daddy was a gangster. Chapter 1. Harlem, 1990. Faith sat in the passenger seat of the Audi, staring aimlessly out the window. He caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window. Black ski hat rolled up, sitting cocked ace-deuce on his head, bloodshot eyes from the weed he'd been smoking, and an unmistakable look of uncertainty on his face. For the millionth time, he wondered what the hell he was doing in the car that night. "You nervous?" Monk asked, from behind the wheel. He was a brutishly built man, with long arms and hands the size of baseball mitts. He had been given the name Monk as a kid because of his close resemblance to a monkey. But when puberty hit, he blossomed into a full-grown gorilla. He and Face had been friends since they were 10 years old. "No, I'm good," Face lied. "Bullshit." Monk gave a throaty laugh that sounded like something out of a scary movie. Face hated when he laughed. "You've been my ace since free lunch. You know I'd never put you in harm's way." "I know it, Monk. It just seems like we're taking a big risk doing this shit all out in the open," Face said. "Yeah, it's risky, but it's our best chance. If we try to do it in the building, we can get trapped off," Monk explained. Face still didn't seem convinced. "Dig, I know you ain't no stick-up kid, Face, but we need this paper. I got a kid to feed, and you got one on the way. You're always talking about how you don't want to raise your seed in the hood, but you ain't gonna get out no time soon selling packages for neighborhood. We need this paper. Our kids need this paper. Face thought of his girlfriend, Michelle, and his unborn child. When Michelle told Face she was pregnant, he started hustling like a man possessed. He made decent money hustling coke for neighborhood, but it wasn't enough to build the type of life that he wanted for his family. For as long as he was eating from the next man's hand, he would be behind the 8 ball. He needed to gain his independence, but to do that, he needed seed money, which was what placed him in the car with Monk, about to pull a caper. Yo, that looks like his whip right there, Monk said, pointing to a green Jeep that had just pulled up in front of the building they had been staking out. The kid they'd been plotting on was named Sonny, a dealer from Harlem. He ran a few spots north of 145th Street. He wasn't a heavyweight, but he tried to carry himself like he was one. Sonny thought he was a made guy and had a tendency to treat people like they were beneath him, especially his workers. One night, he'd slapped one of his workers around in front of a bunch of people, and as revenge, the worker told Monk about Sonny's collection route and the bag of money he retired with every night. It was said to hold between $10,000 and $20,000 nightly. It wasn't much in comparison with the competition, but it was enough to put Monk on his ass and drag Face along for the ride. Sonny was just climbing out of his Jeep when Monk rolled up behind him, brandishing the .44. You know what it is, nigga. Let me see those hands, Monk ordered. Slowly, Sonny turned his head and looked at Monk and Face, who had just joined them. He knew their faces, but not their names. You little niggas know what you doing? Yeah, robbing you. Now hand over the money, Monk demanded. I got a few hundred in my pocket. You can have that, Sonny said, keeping his voice even so as not to provoke the young gunman. You think I'm stupid? I want that drug money you've been riding around all night collecting, Monk told him. Listen, I don't know what you're talking about. All I have on me is the money in my pocket, Sonny said. Monk swung one of his meaty hands and slapped Sonny. The force of the blow sent him crashing into the Jeep. Stop playing with me and set that cake out before I put a hole in you. Leave my brother alone. A voice startled them. A teenage boy who they hadn't noticed jumped out of the Jeep and rushed them. Chill, shorty. Face grabbed him in a chokehold. Tim, Sonny yelled and made a move for the boy. But Monk's gun to his head stopped him. Chill out, man. Don't hurt my little brother. I'm gonna put this ugly little nigga in a bag unless you give me what I want. I know about that bag of money you bring home every night, Monk said sinisterly. Sonny calmed himself before speaking again. Look, I don't know who you've been getting your information from, but they're wrong. I don't have any money, but I can get you some. I just need a few hours. Unfortunately, time is not your friend, Monk said. Check the Jeep, he told Face. Still with Tim in a chokehold, Face backed up toward the Jeep and peered inside. When he saw the black duffel bag on the floor, his eyes got wide. Jackpot, he said, shoving Tim on the floor and retrieving the bag. It was heavier than he expected, which meant there was potentially more money in it than they had been told. You're making a mistake, Sonny said. Shut the fuck up. Monk slapped him to the ground. I should shoot your bitch ass just for lying to me. How much you think is in there? He asked Face. Face nervously unzipped the bag, and when he peeked inside, his face went slack. How much? Monk asked. Seeing his partner's facial expression made him anxious. You gotta see this, Face said, still staring into the bag in shock. Keeping his gun on Sonny, Monk moved to look over Face's shoulder into the bag. Sonny hadn't been lying about not having any money, but what he did have was about several neatly wrapped packages of cocaine. Monk's lips parted into a wide grin. Santa done brought a white Christmas to Harlem. Sonny felt like the bottom of his stomach had just been ripped out. He had been given the assignment to deliver the drugs by a very powerful man as a test of his loyalty, and he had fucked it up. Not only was he getting robbed for his package, but he'd gotten his little brother caught up with him. Listen, y'all can have my money, my jewels, and my Jeep, but those drugs belong to Pharaoh, Sonny told him. At the mention of the name Pharaoh, Face immediately began having second thoughts. Pharaoh was an urban legend in the hood. Nobody was quite sure where he came from or what his story was. It was as if one day he and his crew just popped out of thin air and started moving major weight. More than a few cats had tried to challenge Pharaoh's claim, and it ended ugly for all of them. Pharaoh's men murdered his enemies in the most gruesome ways and always made sure the bodies were left in plain sight so that it sent a message to everyone else who thought to test him. After a while, cats either steered clear of him or got down with him. Nobody fucked with Pharaoh, not even the police. You mean they used to belong to Pharaoh? Monk corrected him. You and that nigga better chalk this up to the game. Pharaoh was gonna kill you when he finds out what happened, Sonny spat. Good thing you ain't gonna live to tell him about it, Monk said, before pulling the trigger and blowing Sonny's brains out all over the sidewalk. Sonny! Tim scrambled over to his brother. What the fuck did you do, Monk? Face grabbed his friend. Dead men tell no tales. Monk shoved him away. I should have beat him to death instead of shooting him for making me go through all this trouble and not having no paper on him. Monk kicked Sonny's corpse. Let's get the fuck out of here. Face scooped up the duffel bag full of coke. Let me just tie up the loose ends. Monk aimed the gun at Tim. He's a fucking kid, Monk, Face said. Monk looked at Tim, who was cradling his brother's corpse and staring daggers at Monk. Kids grow up to be men. He cocked the hammer. Face laid his hand on his friend's arm and lowered it. We got the bag. Nobody else needs to die tonight, he said softly. Monk cut his eyes at Face, then back to Tim. After a few long moments, he lowered the gun. You got that, Face, he agreed, right before he kicked Tim in the face, knocking 2 of his teeth out. Tim lay on the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Monk turned to Face, who was looking at him like he was stupid. Just a little something for him to remember me by, he snickered. Let's boogie. He darted back to the car with Face on his heels. The whole ride back to the block, Face kept looking over his shoulder as if the police would jump out behind him at any moment, or worse, one of Pharaoh's hit squads. His heart had been in his ass ever since they'd left the crime scene. Monk had gotten Face into some messes, but this one trumped them all. It was too late to cry about it at that point. What was done was done. When we get back to the block, I'm killing John for that bogus tip, Monk said casually. This nigga told me Sonny was gonna have cash on him, not powder. I ain't got time to stand around and try to sell all this shit off. I got some homeboys in New Jersey I can call, and maybe they'll buy all this shit from us if we give them a deal on it. I'm thinking for 70 cents on the dollar, we won't get street value for the coke, but at least we'd be able to get rid of it all in one shot and have some money in our pockets. We're keeping it, Face said unexpectedly. Monk took his eyes off the road and looked at Face. A little while ago, you was acting like you didn't want nothing to do with it. Now you talking about we keeping it? It's like you said, hustling for neighborhood ain't gonna get me and my family where we need to be. But what we got in that black bag will, Face said coolly. Monk smiled. Spoken like a true gangster. We about to own all this shit, Face. Their moment was broken up when Face's pager went off. He looked at the screen and saw Michelle's number, followed by the number 000. Oh shit, take me to Harlem Hospital, Face told Monk frantically. Something wrong? Monk asked. No, everything is right for once. Michelle is in labor. I'm about to be a father, Faith said proudly. Ah, damn, it's about time, Monk said, making an illegal U-turn, as if they didn't have a bag full of cocaine in the back seat. I guess it's true what they say, huh? What's that, Monk? One life leaves the world so another can enter it. Chapter 2, 1995. What do you think of this one, Persia? Face held up a tiny pink fur coat that he had pulled off the rack. He had cut his braids and now wore his hair in a low Caesar with a half-moon part. His face was covered in a faint coat of hair, but he still didn't look a day over 21. Dressed in a fitted black button-up shirt, blue jeans, and Timberlands, which he refused to tie, Face looked more like a male model than the trafficker of poison he had become. Persia cocked her head to one side, causing the white beads braided into her hair to rattle. Her lips twisted like she was in deep thought, making her look even more like her father. I think that one is really pretty. If you like it, then it's yours, Face said, which made Persia clap excitedly. She loved when her daddy bought her gifts. Face, put that coat down, because we are not getting it for her. Michelle came from the back, wearing a tight-fitting, off-the-shoulder dress she was thinking about buying. She was a pretty, light-skinned girl, with short-cropped hair and a bright smile. Since Michelle had given birth to Persia, she had put on a little weight, but mostly in the breasts, hips, and thighs, so it looked good on her. Why not? Face asked. Because it's a waste of money. You brought her a fur coat last year, and by the time she got around to wearing it, the coat was already too small, Michelle reminded him. Hush and let that man spoil his child if he wants, Charlene said. He was behind the counter ringing up some items a lady had just picked out. Her long box braids were pulled back into a ponytail, drawing attention to her angelic face. She was as dark as onyx, with smooth, blemish-free skin, an ode to her Kenyan heritage. Charlene was Michelle's best friend and the mother of Monk's son. You mind your business. Of course you don't care if he blows money unnecessarily in here because it's going into your purse, Michelle said. Charlene's was Charlene's love child, a boutique on 125th Street that specialized in customized women's and children's clothing. While Monk had been spending money, Charlene had been stacking it and managed to save up enough to open the boutique. Monk always felt like it wasn't necessary because he was getting enough money in the streets to support them, but Charlene was no fool. She knew that fast money didn't last forever, and she wanted to make sure they had something to fall back on. Okay, let's get a neutral opinion. Little Monk, what do you think about this coat? Face asked the little boy who was sitting on the stairs near the register, with a dazed look on his face. Little Monk jumped. He was pretending to be reading a comic book, but he was secretly watching Persia, and he thought they'd caught him. I don't know. He shrugged his broad shoulders. He was only 6 years old, and already the biggest kid in his class. He had his father's brutish genes and thankfully his mother's good looks. He was a handsome young man, with thick black hair and long dark eyelashes. Of course he doesn't. All boys are dumb, except for my daddy, Persia said. Are you dumb? Little Monk said heatedly. Are too, Persia taunted. Shut up, Princess P, Little Monk called her. It was a nickname the kids on the block had given her when their family moved from Harlem to their new house in Queens. Persia hated the name. Don't call me that, dummy, Persia said heatedly. Tears formed in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Okay, the both of you, knock it off, Michelle ordered. Charlene came from behind the counter, smiling and shaking her head. Those two argue like an old married couple. Might be a sign. What do you say, little monk? You gonna make an honest woman out of my baby girl when you're all grown up? Face asked teasingly. Little Monk's brow furrowed, and for a minute, it was almost like looking at his father when he and Face were that age. Make an honest woman of her? How am I supposed to stop her from lying when it's her mouth? He asked, obviously not getting the joke. The adults laughed, while the children looked at them as if they had lost their minds. I swear if he ain't his father's child. Charlene kissed Monk on the forehead. Speaking of which, where my nigga at? Face asked. Your guess is as good as mine. Monk spends more time in the streets than he does at home with us, Charlene said with a slight attitude. Face shrugged. You know how the game goes. Yeah, I've been playing it with him since I was a little girl, and it's getting boring. I sure wish he would grow up one day like you did, Face, Charlene said. Don't think living with this one is a cakewalk, Michelle spoke up. I get more than my fair share of bullshit from Face, but I have to admit he's getting better with it. My training is paying off. She laughed. Train my ass, I do what I want to do, Face boasted. Yep, that's exactly what I allow you to believe. Michelle kissed Face on the lips. Face's sky pager went off on his hip. When he read the message across the small blue screen, he smiled. Speak of the devil, this is Monk hitting me up right here. I'm about to go meet him in the hood. Wait a second, what about Persia? Michelle asked. Face was confused. What about her? You got her, right? Come on, Face, don't even play me like that, baby. I told you that me and Charlene were going to the movies and I needed you to stay with Persia, Michelle reminded him. Face sucked his teeth. Why don't you just take her with you? I am not taking Persia to see higher learning. That's too grown up for her. Now stop acting up and take your daughter with you. Face let out a deep sigh. I can't believe you're doing this to me when you know I'm trying to hit the block. But I can't believe you're complaining about watching your own child, Michelle shot back. If you're just going to the block, then it shouldn't be a problem unless you've got something going on that you shouldn't. She raised her eyebrow. You know damn well I ain't got nothing funny going on. Stop acting like that, Michelle. Then stop acting like you're having a problem helping out, Michelle told him. When the movie is over, we might stop off and get something to eat. I'll page you when I'm on my way home. Michelle kissed Persia on the forehead. Be a good girl for Daddy, okay? Okay, Mommy. Persia beamed. Face, since you're going to see Monk anyway, you may as well drop little Monk off to him, Charlene suggested. Oh, come on. I ain't Mr. Mom, Face said. Don't be like that. I'll even pay for the cab. Charlene pulled a 20 from her purse and extended it to Face, but he didn't take it. Aight, but y'all owe, Face conceded. The next time me and my nigga want to hit the town, I don't want to hear shit from either one of y'all. Michelle sucked her teeth. Y'all do what y'all want to do, whether we complain or not, so stop it. Come on, y'all. Face took both kids by the hand and left the boutique to catch a cab on the avenue. As Face was standing on the curb trying to flag down a taxi, a car pulled to a stop at the red light. There were 3 people inside. Shantae, who was a chick known for boosting in the hood, her man Tim, and his little brother Chucky. Normally, Tim wouldn't let Chucky mob out with him, but his mother had made him promise to take the 12-year-old along because she had to work a double shift and didn't trust the troublesome child to be home by himself. Ever since the death of her oldest son, Sonny, she had become increasingly worried about her other children, praying they didn't get caught up in the same madness. Grudgingly, Tim let Chucky roll out, which pleased Chucky to no end. He had been trying his hardest to follow in his big brother's criminal footsteps, so actually being able to ride around with him made his day. Shantae, why the fuck did you come across 125th Street instead of taking 126? You know traffic is always fucked up, Tim complained. Tim, stop being a backseat driver and let me do what I do. I've been driving in New York since before your ass could ride a bicycle. Shantae teased him. I hear that, old timer, Tim teased back. He pulled a rolled blunt from his pocket and proceeded to spark it. Tim, why you lighting that shit while we got Chucky in the car? I don't want to hear no shit from your mom if he comes home with his clothes smelling like weed, Shantae said. Tim sucked his teeth. Shantae, you my girl, not my mom's, so why don't you chill? Besides, this little nigga smokes too, and think nobody know it. Ain't that right, Chucky? He turned around to face the little brother. Yeah, I got blazed a few times, Chucky said proudly, trying to impress his brother. Tim laughed. That dirt y'all be smoking in the park don't even count as getting you blazed. This, he held the blunt up, is that real shit. Suddenly Tim had an idea. You want to hit this? He extended the blunt to Chucky. Tim, don't get that boy no weed, Shantae warned. Shantae, he gonna smoke anyway, but at least if he's smoking with me, I know ain't nothing gonna happen to him, Tim reasoned. Here. He forced the blunt on Chucky. Chucky took 2 pulls and began coughing. Tim laughed and tried to take the weed back, but Chucky wasn't quite ready to let go. He took another pull, this one smaller and softer, and held the smoke. Within seconds, Chucky's bright eyes became red and lazy. Wearing a dumb grin, he handed the blunt back to Tim. Yeah, that's that shit right there, Tim smiled. You are such a bad influence, Shantae said, before snatching the blunt from Tim, hitting it. Tim was lounging in the passenger seat, enjoying his buzz, when he saw a familiar face that made him sit upright. He squinted to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. The man was older than the last time he saw him, but he'd know his face anywhere. Pull up on that dude right there, Tim ordered, pointing to a man getting into a taxi with 2 small children. What's going on, Tim? Shantae asked nervously. Something about the look in Tim's eyes frightened her. Stop asking me so many damn questions and pull up, Tim shouted. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small .32. Tim, please don't start no shit, Shantae pleaded. I ain't starting nothing, but I'm about to finish some shit, Tim told Shantae, but kept his eyes on the man. What's going on? Chucky asked from the back seat. He had never seen his brother so mad, and it made him nervous. You want to know what's going on? That faggot right there is one of the dudes who killed Sonny. They shot him down like a dog in the street, and now it's time for payback. Chucky's mind immediately raced back to the day he had come home from school to find his mother crying and Tim sitting on the floor, still wearing the shirt stained with Sonny's blood. At the time, he was too young to really understand what was going on. Should we call the police? Tim laughed. Please don't give no fuck about kids in the ghetto. This gotta be handled with street justice. Tim reached for the door handle. Tim, don't. He got kids with him. Shantae grabbed his arm to try and stop him from getting out of the car. Tim snatched away from her. Fuck him and his seeds. He killed my blood and I'm gonna kill him. Tim, we're on 125th. If you shoot Face, your ass is going to jail before his body hits the ground. Don't be stupid, Shantae said. You're right, Tim said as her words sank in. I ain't gonna do nothing to him on 125th, but his ass is going to sleep today. Follow the cab. Tim, bitch, he cut her off. You either drive this motherfucking car or get the fuck out so I can handle what I gotta handle. But Face is out of here, either way. Shantae was hesitant. This was not how she had planned her day going when she came out of the house. All she wanted to do was swipe a few pieces of clothing from the local stores that she could sell in the hood so she could have some party money that night. But she now found herself on the verge of becoming an accessory to a murder. She looked at Tim to try to reason with him, but the hurt expression on his face after seeing his brother's murderer said it wasn't up for debate. Reluctantly, Shantae did as he had ordered and followed the taxi. Chapter 3. Faith got out of the cab in the street and walked around to the curb to open the other door for the children. As soon as the neighborhood kids saw Persia with little Monk, they came running, glad to see their chums. Faith had moved his family off the block when his name started ringing in the streets, so Persia didn't get to see as much of her old friends. Monk had moved too, but only a few blocks over, and he was a constant fixture in the hood. "What up, big face?" A young boy named Charlie greeted him by slapping his palm. "Chillin', shorty, what's up with you? I hope you're staying out of trouble and staying focused on school." Face quizzed him. "Yeah, I'm doing great in school. I got 4 A's and 2 B's on my last report card," Charlie said proudly. "Good shit, man." Face smiled. "Since I'm doing so good in school, can I hold something?" Charlie asked, with his hand extended. Face shook his head and reached into his pocket. "I swear if you ain't your mother's kid," he said playfully, as he peeled off a $5 bill and handed it to Charlie. Face and Charlie's mother had dated back in the days, but she was always begging him for money, and it was a turnoff, so he stopped messing with her. "You know you can't give one without giving the other," Karen said, with one hand on her hip and the other one extended. She was Charlie's little sister, and even at an early age, the fresh little girl showed signs that she would likely follow in her mother's footsteps. Before Face could get back into his pocket, he was surrounded by the rest of the neighborhood kids, all wanting their cuts from his bankroll. Face broke all the kids off with dollars, then watched as they all went running down the block to the bodega. In them, Face saw how he and Monk used to be. Dirt poor kids who dreamed of having something in life and escaping the ghettos they were born in. He only hoped that they make better choices than he had in their quests for freedom. Face didn't see Monk immediately, but he knew he wasn't far. Cats like him never ventured too far out of their comfort zones. Face waved to some of the people he knew and snubbed others. When he was still making hand-to-hand sales, he was always on the block. But with more money came more problems, so he played the block less and less. People started whispering how Face thought he was too good for the old neighborhood, but that was hardly the case. He just knew better than to continue to shit where he lived. No matter how some of the locals felt about Face, they knew better than to try him, because whereas Face was seldom seen, Monk was always around, lurking and looking for a reason to hurt someone. "Yo, Face! Face!" Face turned to see who was calling his name and spotted Neighborhood coming in his direction. Neighborhood was what you would call a landmark in the hood, meaning he had been there longer than most and had no desire to go elsewhere. He would live and die in the same hood that had birthed him, and he was totally fine with that. Face and Neighborhood had history. It was Neighborhood who had taught him how to survive on the streets and turned him on to the drug game. He was the man who had given Face his first package when he was starving and his blessings when he wanted to strike out on his own. At one time, Neighborhood had been a sporting young cat who showed plenty of promise in the drug game. But Neighborhood's downfall had been the fact that he loved a good time more than the money. When he fell off, the hood had turned its back on him. But Face still had love for the man who had taught him to hustle. That day, Neighborhood was sporting a pair of green Boss jeans with the beef and broccoli Timbs and camouflage army jacket. His jacket looked like it could have benefited from a spin in the washer, and his boots weren't the crispest, but he could fit in with most crowds without raising a red flag. "What's up with you, neighborhood?" Face gave him dap. "Same shit, different toilet," Neighborhood replied. "I see you shining like new money as always." He eyeballed the thick bracelet that Face was rocking. Face brushed invisible lint off his sleeves. "You gotta dress for success, you know how it go." "Listen to you, spit my own lines at me. Face, I can remember when you was just a nappy-head young nigga out here begging to hold a package. Now you're handing them out. I'm proud of you and how you came up to play this game," Neighborhood said, beaming like a father who had just watched his son graduate from high school. "I swear, I never could figure how you came up so quick after you left me." That was a secret only known to Face and Monk. After they'd taken Pharaoh's drugs, they knew the streets would be buzzing about the robbery and missing product. They had to move smart so as not to give themselves away. Face was messing with a girl who lived in Richmond, Virginia, who he knew could help them move the drugs down there. It took a minute, but they were able to sell off all of the coke. With the money they made in Richmond, they went to see Neighborhoods Connect, Flacco in Washington Heights, and started buying cocaine in small amounts at a time. Over the course of a few months, when they had worked their way up from grams to weight, nobody gave them so much as a second look. They were just two young cats who were on their grind. "Well, I did have a good teacher." Face played it off. "Indeed you did, Face. You were always a smart kid, good with money, and knew how to fly under the radar. I just wish some of that could have rubbed off on your buddy Monk. I love the youngster like I love you, but Monk is out here moving sideways." Neighborhood shook his head sadly. "What do you mean by that?" Face was now serious. Neighborhood was his OG, and he respected him. But Monk was his brother. "Same shit, man." Neighborhood shrugged it off as if it was nothing, because he didn't want to create tension. "Don't start speaking roundabout now. What's up, Neighborhood?" Neighborhood hesitated for a few minutes, searching for the right words so as not to offend. "Dig, man. Word on the streets is that your boy Monk is out here on some gorilla shit. I heard a few cats whisper tales that it was him who robbed them Jamaican cats up on Boston Road for all that cocaine a few nights ago." Face had heard the story like everyone else, but it didn't make sense for Monk to be the culprit. Neighborhood, that don't even sound right. Me and Monk get our work from Flacco. So why would he be stealing coke instead of just seeing our man for the re-up? "Because Monk owes Flacco money for that heroin he gave him on consignment," Neighborhood informed him. "Bullshit, we don't sell heroin, only cocaine," Face reminded him. "You only sell coke. Monk will sell anything he can turn a dollar from. The way I hear it, he got the dope to try to make some side money off these dudes some bitch turned him on to. Of course, the deal went sour and Monk got burned for the dope." Neighborhood filled him in. He shook his head. "Monk is always doing some dumb shit over pussy. If Monk wants to sell a little dope on the side, it's his money to spend and fuck up. I got no beef with that. It's the consignment part that's bothering me. From our very first package, we've always paid for everything up front. No debts, that's the rule." "Face, ain't you realized yet that you the only one playing by the rules?" Neighborhood asked. "You better open your eyes to what's going on around you, Face." "I'll get in his ear and see what the fuck is good," Face said. "You can talk to him all you want, but he might be more inclined to listen to that white bitch you've been whispering in his ear than me or you." Face was shocked. "What white bitch? Monk didn't tell me you started fucking with..." Then it hit him. "Nah, you got it wrong, Neighborhood. I know Monk toot a little bit, but so do a lot of cats. Monk sniffing a little coke here and there ain't about nothing. That's the same shit I used to say when I started dipping." And look at me now. Neighborhood opened his jacket so that Face could get a good look at the tattered iceberg sweater he was wearing. Face didn't even want to get the visual in his head of what Neighborhood was insinuating. I talked to him. Where is he? I seen him earlier down by the basketball courts round the corner. Neighborhood recalled. All right, let me go holler at my nigga. Face gave Neighborhood dap. You good? You need a few dollars? He pulled out his bankroll. Come on, Face, don't insult me like that. I'm a little down on my luck right now, but my hands still work. And I'd rather use them to earn some money than take a handout. You want to do something for me? Put me on a package and let me rock for a few hours. Neighborhood told him. He'd always been a proud man, even being down and out. I have one of the young boys bring you something tonight that you can knock off. Face told him. That's what I'm talking about. Neighborhood rubbed his hands together in anticipation. And don't worry, you know I'm going to bring all your money back straight. Neighborhood assured him. Face waved him off. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to lay half a G-pack, and you can keep whatever you make from it. That should keep you straight for the next few days. Neighborhood was so happy, he looked like he would burst into tears. Thanks, Face. He hugged him. I swear they don't make real niggas no more. You gotta be one of the last. It is what it is. But if you fuck that up, don't come back around me singing no sob story, Neighborhood. I'm serious. Face, don't even play me like that. I'm an addict, not a creep. Now let me hold $20 so I can get my day started. I ain't had my wake up yet. Neighborhood gave him his best slave grin. Same old Neighborhood. Face laughed while peeling him off 2 20s. Ain't nothing changed for me, baby. For as long as the Neighborhood stays the same, so will Neighborhood. He capped before vanishing into the hustle and bustle of the avenue. Face took his time walking down the block, as he had a lot to process before he saw Monk. He was trying his best not to digest what Neighborhood was telling him, but it made sense as he thought about it. A week or so prior, when Face had been in the Heights, Flacco had offhandedly asked about Monk. Face hadn't paid it any mind when it happened, but in light of recent information, he was forced to reevaluate everything. Though Face hadn't taken anything from Flacco, Monk was his partner, so it looked bad on both of them. Face and Monk had been making money hand over fist over the last few years from selling cocaine and crack. Face was hustling under Neighborhood. It was strictly coke. Neighborhood and some of the other cats didn't want to bother with crack because they looked at it as a poor man's drug. To them, smoking lacked the elegance of snorting. But Face saw it differently. He predicted that crack would spread like wildfire, and he was right. It started in the hood, decimating households and breaking up families, but it eventually spread. Dudes who were once on top of their game were now walking around like zombies, selling their jewelry or whatever they could get their hands on for a hit of crack. Nobody was exempt, including the white kids who were once buying grams of cocaine in club bathrooms. They were now buying boulders of crack for half the price and double the blast. It soon got to a point where people from all walks of life now flocked to urban ghettos to pay homage to the new king of the slums, the crack man. Face heard his friend before he spotted him. Monk's voice boomed from the basketball court, shouting profanities to get his point across. It was chilly out, but he still had his shirt off, wearing nothing but sweatpants, Nikes, and a white do-rag. Steam came off his cold black chest as his hot sweat met with the cold air. His every movement was primal, dribbling the ball awkwardly between his legs, glaring at the other young men on the court, challenging one of them to guard him. All ignored the challenge, except for one young man by the name of Rafiq. Rafiq was a schoolboy and only came outside to go to the store for his mother or play basketball. He occasionally sat out on nice nights to sip a few beers or smoke weed, but other than that, he didn't normally play the block. Monk dribbled hard to the hoop, and as he passed Rafiq, he slammed his elbow into the man's gut hard enough to drop him. Check style, nigga, Monk snarled, bouncing the ball hard on the ground for emphasis. Damn, you a butch, Rafiq said, picking himself up off the ground. Monk stopped his dribbling and turned toward the kid. What you just called me? Chill, Monk, he didn't mean nothing by it, Scooter intervened. He was one of the young boys who hustled and did dirt with Monk. No, let the nigga speak his mind. Monk pushed Scooter to the side and confronted Rafiq. What did you say? Rafiq was clearly nervous, but he didn't want to seem like a punk in front of everyone who had been watching the pickup game. All I'm saying is, you be out here abusing niggas on the court. I don't mean nothing by it. Learn how to take a joke. You know what? You're right. You do take things too seriously sometimes, and I need to learn how to laugh more, Monk said, before hitting Rafiq in the face with the ball and busting his nose. See, now that shit was funny. The whole park erupted in laughter as Rafiq stood there with his nose leaking like a broken pipe. Face had seen enough, so he stepped in. Monk, you bugging. He got between his friend and Rafiq. You good? He asked Rafiq. He simply nodded and walked off in shame. Before he left the park, he glared behind him at Monk, who was still laughing. If looks could kill, Monk would have dropped dead. Pussy! Monk called after him. Cut that shit out, man. You're supposed to be a boss, and you acting like the schoolyard bully. Face slapped his friend's palm in greeting. I don't know how they do it on your side of 7th Avenue, but on this side, the strong survive. I keep the fear of God in these niggas to squash any big ideas, Monk told him. What you doing up this way? I thought you'd be out in Bellport at the country club or something, he joked. Knock it off, acting like the hood don't still pump through my veins. I just like to keep a little lower profile, unlike yourself. I hear you've been pretty busy lately. Will you hear that? Monk asked. They shrugged. Streets are talking. That ain't new. Streets been talking since the beginning of time, which is why snitching is at an all-time high. Monk shot back. About then, Persia, Lil Monk, and their crew came into the park with the bags full of candy they'd brought from the store. Monk kissed Persia on the top of her head and greeted his son with a jab to the chest, staggering him. You know the rules. Protect yourself at all times. Monk reminded him and threw another jab. This one Lil Monk blocked and came back with a combination. That's my little soldier. Monk rubbed the top of his head. Go grab Daddy's hoodie off the bench. It's getting chilly out here. Okay, Lil Monk said, and skipped off to retrieve Monk's hoodie. When he picked it up off the bench, a small handgun fell out of the pocket. The other kids wisely backed up, but Lil Monk scooped the gun up and wrapped it in the hoodie as if it were normal. Boy, what the hell is wrong with you? Face snatched the hoodie and gun from Lil Monk and shoved it in Big Monk's chest. Don't you know that loaded guns are not toys? They're dangerous. Uncle Face, why are you bugging? My daddy showed me how to handle a gun. Even help him clean them sometimes, Little Monk said innocently. Face looked to Monk for an explanation, but he just shrugged. All Face could do was shake his head. Y'all go play over there so the grown-ups can finish talking. He shooed them away. When they were out of earshot, he turned his attention back to Monk. Is everything good between you and Flacco? He was frustrated now and wanted to get right to the point. That wetback motherfucker been talking about me? Flacco out here kicking dirt on my name? Monk immediately got defensive. Monk, you need to chill. Flacco ain't said nothing about you to me. I'm just asking if everything is good between y'all. Face explained. Monk searched his face for signs of deception. When he saw none, he managed to relax a bit. Your man Flacco had fronted me something. I got burned for it on the street, so I owe him a little change. Monk, you know the rules. We pay for what we get. We don't play consignment. Face said disappointedly. Some of us play differently than others, Face. I'm in the streets, would it be? Sometimes shit happens and we have to move accordingly. That's how it works when you're on the ground floor and not watching from the sidelines. Face didn't miss Monk's slick tone when he said it, but he let the slight go. Monk, you've been my ace since we was kids, and you always gonna be my ace, whether you're right or wrong. All I'm really trying to break down to you is that it's important for all of us to keep business relationships good so that everybody keeps eating. Monk didn't want to admit it, but Face had a point. He knew if things went sour between him and Flacco, it'd be fucking both their pockets up, and that wasn't honorable. You right, Face. I'm gonna make it right with Flacco this week. He gave Face a pound and hug to seal the deal. Yo, what with me to the store? Playing ball with these young boys got my mouth dry as hell. The two men started toward the park exit, talking among themselves. When they got to the mouth of the park, Persia called Face back. Monk kept walking while he met Persia near the fence. Daddy, if you're going to the store, can you bring me something back? Persia asked. Girl, didn't you just come from the store? Yeah, but I forgot to get something to drink. Can you bring me a soda? She asked in her sweetest voice. No, you can have a juice, Face countered. He and Persia stood near the fence, haggling about soda versus juice, when Face heard the rapid slapping of feet on the sidewalk behind him. He turned around and saw a man rushing toward him with a gun raised. His lips were pulled back into a sneer, showing the space in the front of his mouth where his teeth used to be. The man shouted something, but it was distorted, as if the world had slowed down. Face looked over his shoulder at Persia, whose eyes were locked on the gunman. Not in front of my baby girl, was all Face could remember thinking before everything went black. When Face got his wits back about him, he was being thrown roughly on the ground and having his arms forced behind his back. For a few seconds, he was confused about what was happening until he saw the cold, dead eyes of the gunman staring at him from a few feet away where his body lay. When the police yanked him to his feet, he was able to really take in the scene. The shooter was stretched out with 2 holes in his chest. Face would find out later that the man he'd shot was the boy he'd made Monk spare 5 years prior. Tim had come back seeking revenge for Sonny. The officers kneeling around Tim's body were holding 2 guns, one a .32, and the other was a .44 caliber bulldog Face carried with him religiously. He didn't need the police to tell him what had happened, and he didn't need a trial to know that he was fucked. A few feet away, Persia screamed frantically, while Monk tried to keep her from the crime scene. Face's heart broke into a million pieces when he saw his daughter hysterical. Knowing he was going to prison for a very long time didn't hurt him half as much as the thought of him letting her down. It's going to be okay, Persia, he called to her as the officer shoved him toward the car. You hear Daddy talking to you? It's going to be okay. Persia, Persia, Persia. Part 2, The Princess and the Pauper. Chapter 4, 2007. Persia, Persia, Persia woke from her sleep with a start. Her heart beat so hard in her chest that she felt a mild headache coming on from the overflow of blood to her brain. Her fingers gripped the sweat-soaked sheets so tightly that she had broken a nail. The haze was slow to roll back from Persia's brain as she looked around, expecting to see a Harlem street corner, but instead found floral papered walls lined with pictures and awards from school. Standing in the doorway, with a worried expression on her face, was her mother, Michelle. "Are you okay, Persia? I was coming to wake you up for school when I heard you screaming," Michelle asked in a concerned tone. "I'm fine, Mom," Persia said, pushing her sweat-dampened black hair out of her brown face. "Are you sure? You look kind of pale." Michelle sat on the edge of the bed and placed her hand on Persia's forehead. Persia pulled away. "Yeah, it was just a bad dream." "The nightmare's back?" Michelle recalled the horrible nightmares Persia had suffered from for years after what had happened that day. "How long?" "Not like before when I was having them almost every night. Maybe for a week or two, off and on," Persia told her. "When you used to get them, the doctor said it was stress that was likely causing them. Maybe the adjustment of transferring to a new school is what's causing them. I'm sure if we spoke to Father Michael at St. Mary's, he'd let us transfer you back." "No, Mom, I've been in Catholic school all my life, and it's driving me crazy. This is my last year of high school, and I want to enjoy it wearing my own clothes instead of a uniform, and hanging out with my friends instead of a bunch of white girls." Persia fumed. "Persia, you know we don't see color in this house," Michelle reminded her. "Besides, you've got plenty of friends at St. Mary's. Sarah and Marty go there too. And for as much time as you spend together, I thought you guys were close." "We are close, Mom. But that's because we've lived a block away from each other since forever. I mean, my other friends." Michelle twisted her lips. "You mean them little fast girls from 7th Avenue? Mommy, don't act like that. We're from 7th Avenue too. We just don't live there anymore," Persia shot back. "Yes, but even when we did live over that way, we always carried ourselves to a certain standard and made sure that you grew up with principles, which is more than I can say for your little friends." "Mom, I know some of the girls from the neighborhood are a little wild, which is why I only really hang out with Karen and Mika." Michelle sucked her teeth. "Child, please. Karen has been a fast ass since she came into the world, and don't even get me started on that Mika. Didn't I hear recently that she was tied up in some kind of murder?" "That is not true. Mika didn't do anything, but she knew the dude who did, which is why they questioned her," Persia defended. "Still, I don't know if those are the type of girls I want you hanging around. Bad influence." "Only weak-minded people are influenced by the actions of others. Isn't that what you've always taught me?" Persia reminded her. "Come on, Mom. You know me better than that. Just because my friends are doing something doesn't mean I'll do it. Look at April from down the street. Her parents had to check her into rehab because she was doing hardcore drugs. But me, Sarah, and Marty never tried it, and we all hung out together. I have my own mind, Mom, and you're going to have to learn to trust me to make smart decisions." "I know, baby. It's just hard for me to let you grow up and grow out because of everything we've been through," Michelle admitted. Persia crawled to her knees on the bed and draped her arms around Michelle's neck. "I know, Mommy, but I promise I'll stay focused on school and avoid things that I have no business being a part of." She kissed her on the cheek. "Now get out so I can get dressed. I don't want to be late for school." "Girl, cut it out. It ain't like I've never seen your goodies before," Michelle laughed. "Mother, I am 17 now, which means that I don't have goodies anymore. I have woman parts," Persia said dramatically. "You're a riot, Persia. Now hurry and get dressed so you can come down and eat breakfast." Michelle left her daughter to her privacy. Persia hopped out of bed and went into her private bathroom to get her day started. After brushing her teeth and showering, she came out wrapped in a towel. She was standing with one foot on the stool to her vanity table, applying lotion to her smooth brown skin, when she happened to catch a glimpse of herself in the mirror. She dropped the towel and admired her body. Persia had always had a nice shape, but never much to fill it out until over the past summer, when she had suddenly gotten thick in all the right places. It didn't go unnoticed by the boys in her old neighborhood either. All of the girls in her crew were pretty, but there was something about Persia that always made her the first choice whenever they met guys. Persia didn't understand it back then, but later in life she would realize that it was her innocence that made her stand out. Karen and Mika stunk of the streets, and Persia didn't have that with her. This quality, coupled with being naturally beautiful, made her loved by some and hated by others. After rubbing herself down with lotion, she slipped on a pair of black fitted jeans and gray Air Max with a gray sweater that showed off her shape. She didn't really do makeup, but she hid her eyelids with a soft shadow and applied a coat of gloss to her lips. Rolling her hair into a tight bun, she was ready to face the world. By the time Persia made it downstairs, Michelle and Richard were already halfway through breakfast. Richard was Michelle's husband and Persia's stepfather. He was an older man, but still handsome and very fit for his age. Richard spent countless hours at the gym. Richard and Michelle had known each other for years, with him being a friend of her uncle's. They had always flirted with each other, but never took it beyond that because of the age difference between them. And when Michelle did become of age, she was already with Face. They happened to bump into each other one day, 2 years into Face's sentence, and exchanged numbers. They had started out as friends, but over time, their friendship grew into a marriage. Persia was initially resentful of her mother and Richard's relationship because she felt like she was being disloyal to her father. But as she got older, she began to get a better understanding of their circumstances. Richard was only filling the void in her mother's soul that her father had left. She couldn't fault her mother for wanting to live, so she learned to accept Richard. He was a boring square, nothing like the kinds of men Persia heard her mother was known to date. But he was good to them. Richard had been in Persia's life since she was 7, and though she wasn't his biological child, he still treated her as if she was, without ever once acting like he was trying to take her real dad's place. "Hey, sweetie, how'd you sleep?" Richard asked, without looking up from the newspaper he had his nose buried in. "Like a baby," Persia lied and busied herself rummaging through the fridge. She came out with an apple and a bottle of water. "Girl, put that fruit back and stop acting like you don't see these grits and eggs on the table." Michelle pointed to the plate she'd made for Persia. "Mom, you know if I eat that stuff, it'll all go to my hips and my butt will end up as big as yours," Persia teased her. "Baby girl, I don't get any complaints about this big old booty." Michelle slapped herself on the ass. "I sure don't have any," Richard chimed in. Persia shook her head. "Y'all are so corny. Anyway, I'm about to get out of here so I can catch this bus to the train station." She grabbed her knapsack from the banister where she'd left it the day before and headed for the door. "Hold up, Persia. I'm about to head out so I can drop you off at the Queen's Plaza," Richard offered. He sipped down the last of his coffee and dabbed his goatee with a napkin. "You don't have to go through the trouble, Rich. I'm okay taking the bus," Persia blurted out almost too quickly. She had things to do and didn't want him all in her business and reporting back to her mother. Aside from her being up to no good, she hated spending time alone with Richard because it was always so awkward. Outside of her mother, they had nothing in common. Nonsense. Besides, we don't get to spend any quality time anymore without your mother over-talking us. He smirked. You better stop talking about me like I'm not sitting here. Before the only thing cooked in this house for the next week is butter sandwiches, Michelle threatened. Whenever she sensed tension in the house, she would interject and try to make everybody laugh. Persia picked up on what her mother was trying to do. Okay, she reluctantly agreed to ride with Richard. Persia occupied herself, looking out the window, and tried to drown out the news station that Richard insisted on listening to every morning. Her mind was in a daze thinking about hooking up with her friends in the city, when Rich tapped her on the leg. Did you hear me talking to you? Richard asked. No, I'm sorry. What did he say? I was asking how you like the new school so far, he repeated. I'm loving it. It's a welcome change from St. Mary's and that dry routine, she said. I can totally understand that. I went to Cardinal Hayes back in my day, so I know what it's like. You making any new friends? Richard asked. Don't need new friends when I got my old ones. I know Karen and Mika are your girls. But don't be afraid to expand your circle and connect with other like-minded people. Growth is good, especially for a girl your age. Richard continued to talk, but Persia tuned him out. She knew he meant well, but Richard's speeches were like nails on a chalkboard. Before she knew it, they were pulling up at Queen's Plaza. Thanks for the ride, Rich. Persia collected her knapsack and prepared to make her escape. No problem. How are your pockets looking? She shrugged. I have a few dollars on me. Richard pulled out his wallet and handed her a 20. Here, add that to whatever you already have. Thanks. Again, she said, and got out of the car. Richard sat there for a while and watched as Persia jogged across the street and disappeared into the train station before pulling back into traffic. Persia waited until she thought Richard was gone and came back out of the train station. She was careful to watch for his car as she hustled across the street to the newsstand. Sitting within the stand, listening to a Walkman and reading a magazine, was the son of the owner, Hamid. Persia had come to know him over the past few weeks from stopping to get magazines and other necessary goodies for her commute to school. Hi, Hamid, Persia greeted him. Hamid looked up, and when he saw Persia, he smiled and removed his headphones. What's up, pretty lady? He greeted her. Nothing much. I need to grab a few things for my trip to the city, she told him. Of course. You know I've got whatever you need. Hamid got up from the stool he was sitting on and grabbed several magazines, which he handed to Persia to check out. I got the new Source, Dawn Diva, and that hair magazine came in that you were asking about. Cool. I'll take the hair magazine and the Dawn Diva. But I need something else from you, too. Persia gave him a knowing look. Hamid winked. I got you, baby. He leaned over the candy rack and looked up and down the street cautiously before reaching behind the potato chip rack and pulling out a pencil case. She smelled the weed before he pulled it out. I got that hydro shit that all the project kids are going crazy over. He discreetly handed her a bag of weed. Persia sniffed the bag and frowned. Damn, this weed smells like dog shit. That's how you know it's good. That's a 20 sack. But since you're so pretty, I'll give it to you for $10 and I'll only charge you for one of the magazines. Persia looked hesitant. Can I owe you for the weed? I'm kind of short on cash today. She lied. Persia, you know I fuck with you, but I don't do consignment. I need cash for my stash. He rapped it like it was a song. Don't be like that, Hamid. You know I'm good for it. I'll hit you back as soon as I get my allowance at the end of the week, she said sweetly. Hamid leaned on his elbows and looked at Persia. I don't understand how you live in that big house and both of your parents drive nice cars, but you're always screaming broke. Because that's their money, not mine. Look, if I have to beg you for it, then I don't even want it. Persia rolled her eyes at him. She extended her hand like she was about to give the weed back to him. Hamid didn't reach for the weed. I'll tell you what, I'll let you have the weed if you promise to go out with me. You know my parents don't allow me to date. Persia half lied. Michelle was okay with her going out with boys as long as she got to meet them first so she could ask a million questions. Persia didn't mind bringing the good boys from her neighborhood around her, but she kept the hustlers hidden. Bullshit, I saw you in the sandwich shop the other night with that dusty-ass dude from the projects. You want something from me, and I want something from you. Hamid looked her up and down hungrily. All right, Hamid, I'll go on one date with you, but don't think you're getting no ass for a $20 bag of weed, Persia said, rolling her neck. Hamid laughed because it was like Persia could read his mind. All right, pretty lady, just one date and no funny business. So let me get your number and I'll call you later so we can make the arrangements. I can't right now, I'm late for school. Persia looked down at her watch. I'll catch you later though. Thanks again. She waved and jogged back across the street to the train station. Hamid called after her, but Persia didn't even turn around. He knew she had just run game on him, but he would see her again. Slick bitch didn't even pay me for the magazine. Persia had just made it onto the platform as the train was pulling into the station. Slipping through the crowd of passengers getting on and off the train, she grabbed a double seat near the conductor booth. Just to make sure nobody tried to sit in the next seat and crowd her, she threw her knapsack on it. It was shady for her to game Hamid out of the weed, but he had been trying to game her out of her pants for weeks, so she had just given him a dose of his own medicine. Her friend Karen had once tried to convince her to date him so they could get free weed and snacks, but Persia wasn't with it. Hamid was nice enough, but he was only a paper boy. One thing she had learned from her mother was never to bother with a man who wasn't financially well off. If he couldn't do anything for himself, he couldn't do anything for her. Thinking of her mother made her feel guilty. She thought Persia was on her way to school, but Martin Luther King Jr. High School wouldn't see her that day. She was going to Harlem to meet up with her girls, Karen, Mika, and Ty. They had declared it an unofficial holiday. She loved hanging out in Harlem, but her mother had forbidden her, so she had to sneak anytime she wanted to see her girls outside of school. It never made sense to her why her mother was so adamant about her not hanging out in Harlem, especially since that's where they were from. She chalked it up to her mother being paranoid of someone trying to retaliate against her for the boy her father had killed 12 years prior. Persia knew her mother meant well, but she was 17 years old and almost grown. Persia settled back in her seat and cupped her hands to her nose, inhaling deeply the smell of the exotic weed and thinking about what they were going to get into when she got uptown. It was going to be a good day. At least for her it was. Chapter 5. Little Monk awoke to the sounds of rap music coming from the small radio mounted on his windowsill. Over the music, the disc jockey announced that the weather was 68 and chilly, and the time was 8:45, which meant he was late for school. It was all good, because Little Monk wasn't sure if he felt like going that day anyway. He and school hadn't really seen eye to eye since his most recent release from juvenile detention, but he made sure he attended enough so that his probation officer didn't violate him. If nothing else, his many brushes with the law had taught him how to work around it. He rolled off the mattress on the floor that served as his bed and stretched his long arms, twisting right to left to work the kinks out of his back. He ran his hands over his thick cornrows on his head and tried to remember the last time he'd had his hair braided. When he got his hands on a few dollars, he would have one of the neighborhood hood rats tighten him up. After giving thanks to God for letting him see another day, Lil Monk began his morning calisthenics, 200 quick push-ups and 100 sit-ups. Lil Monk wasn't big on fitness, but he was big on survival. Every day before he left the house, his mind and body had to be right. The world was full of predators, and only the strong survived. It was the one lesson his father, Monk, had taught him, which he'd applied to his everyday life. After his light workout, Lil Monk stood in front of the mirror and looked himself over. He was only 18 years old, but he was already 6 feet tall and weighed about 215 pounds, give or take. A few whiskers sprouted from his chin, but he was a long way from having anything that resembled a beard. Lil Monk had the face of a baby, but the eyes of a man twice his age. In his short time on Earth, he had seen both sunshine and rain, but the last few years had been mostly rain. After dressing in a white thermal shirt, black jeans, and black steel-toed boots, Lil Monk was ready to hit the turf. He walked to his father's bedroom and listened before carefully easing the door open. His father's bed was empty and unmade, and the room was in disarray, but that was nothing new. His father was rarely home unless it was to sleep it off when he finally crashed from his constant street running. Since the day, as they called it, Lil Monk had pretty much been raising himself. When he entered the kitchen, he was greeted by piles of dirty dishes and roaches playing freeze tag on the counter. Lil Monk grabbed a box of cereal, peeking inside with one eye and shaking it to make sure there weren't any critters living in it. He popped open the fridge for some milk. The inside of the refrigerator was so empty that he could hear an echo. There was nothing in it but a half-empty 40-ounce bottle of St. Ides, an old cheeseburger that looked like it was growing fur, and a container of milk. When he went to pour the milk over his cereal, it came out in thick clumps, obviously spoiled. Fuck. Lil Monk tossed the carton in the sink. He was starving, but he would have to wait until he hustled up some money for a meal. Tightening up his belt, he left the apartment and hit the streets. The sun was shining outside, but the air had a chill to it. It wasn't quite cold, but you could tell winter would come early that year. With his hands shoved into his pockets, he walked up to the avenue to see who was out and what was going on. Standing in the doorway of the Chinese restaurant was Lil Monk's friend Charlie. He had on an oversized hoodie and dark sunglasses. From the way Charlie was looking up and down the avenue suspiciously, Lil Monk knew he was up to no good. What you doing out here on some James Bond shit? And what's with the glasses? Lil Monk asked, before giving his friend that. Shit, I'm just trying to make the best of a bad situation. I know you heard what happened, Charlie asked. Nah, I'm just coming out. What went down? Lil Monk asked. Damn, it was popping out here, Charlie said excitedly. He went on to tell Lil Monk the story about how the dudes had come through and robbed one of Pharaoh's drug houses. They took the work and the money, so everything is shut down until somebody comes through with another package. So what you doing standing around like you waiting for it to rain? Lil Monk asked. Trying to get in where I fit in. Charlie opened his hand and showed Lil Monk the 2 baggies filled with white chips. Lil Monk looked around suspiciously, as if the police might have been watching them at that moment. I thought you said the stick-up kids took all the crack off the block. This ain't crack, it's a dummy, Charlie said, grinning stupidly. A dummy was counterfeit crack. Most times it was made out of soap chips, so at a glance, it looked real. And by the time the fiend realizes you played them, you were long gone with their money. The grin was wiped from his face when Lil Monk slapped the fake crack out of his hand. Fuck is you doing? Trying to keep you from getting murdered out here, dumbass. Little Monk shoved him inside the Chinese restaurant. I swear it seems you get stupid about a day, Charlie. Little Monk, I don't know why you acting like that. Me and you have slung dummies plenty of times when we were hot up for cash. I don't see why y'all upset over it now. Charlie didn't see what the big deal was. Yeah, we've sold burned bags together, but never on the same block where we rest our heads. What do you think would have happened if somebody had caught you out here wrong and told Ramses? Little Monk asked him. A worried expression spread across Charlie's face. Ramses was Pharaoh's right hand, and his voice on the streets. He was a man quick to violence, and wasn't known to give passes when people offended him. Ramses would have sent Chucky or Benny looking for you, and ensured that your mother couldn't give you an open casket funeral. Little Monk continued. Only a fool shits where he lives, Charlie. I hear you, Little Monk. Charlie adjusted his sunglasses. And what is with you in those fucking shades? You high or something? Little Monk snatched Charlie's sunglasses off before he could stop him. What the fuck happened to your eye? Nothing, man. Me and Berger were just horsing around. It was an accident. Charlie tried to downplay it. Little Monk tilted Charlie's head up so he could get a better look. What happened to your eye looks deliberate as hell from where I'm standing. Little Monk, you acting like he kicked my ass or something. We was just fucking around and he hit me a little too hard, that's all. You know Berger plays rough, Charlie said. Berger was one of the kids who hustled on their block, so he considered himself a tough guy. Little Monk never liked him because he saw Berger as a bully. I don't give a fuck how he plays. If a man puts his hands on you, you put yours back on him, even if it means getting your ass kicked in the process. At least you fought, Little Monk snarled. Charlie was his best friend in the whole world, and he hated talking to him like that. But Charlie didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. In the world they lived in, the strong survived and the weak were food. Food attracted predators. Predators Little Monk would have to help him fight off. I ain't no sucker, Little Monk, Charlie said. Then show me right when you see this pussy. The more Little Monk talked, the angrier he got. Little Monk, it ain't that serious, Charlie said. He would have much rather have left it alone. Charlie, there ain't gonna be no weak links in this chain. You either gonna take this nigga's head off, or I'm gonna take your head off. Little Monk told him in a tone that said there would be no more debate about it. Before the conversation could get any deeper, the door to the Chinese restaurant opened and a man came. Give me 4 wings, fried hard, Lin, he shouted to the young Chinese girl who was sitting behind the bulletproof glass. He was decked out in a dusty army jacket and ashy black jeans. The nappy wool hat that sat cocked on his head blended almost perfectly with the untamed afro he sported beneath it. No, you still owe for the last order. No wings for you, neighborhood, Lin shouted back. Ain't that some shit? Neighborhood hiked his jeans up over his bony hips. He was teetering left and right, and his eyes were glassy. Lin, I've been on this block since long before your daddy opened this cat kitchen. How many $5 bills I put in yours or your brothers and sisters' hands when I was getting it? I broke the yellow kids off same as I did the black and browns. And you gonna treat me like a crab over some yard bird? Lin gave in. All right, neighborhood. I'll give you an order of wings, but the next time you have to come with money or I have to turn you away, okay? That's what I'm talking about, Lin. Look out for your Uncle Neighborhood. He smiled broadly, showing off discolored and rotting teeth. When he spotted Charlie standing in the corner, his smile faded. Damn, who got you out here looking like Petey the dog from the Little Rascals? I got your little rascal right here, motherfucker. Charlie stepped forward, but Little Monk's hand on his chest stopped him. Chill out, Charlie. Lil Monk told him. Why you gotta fuck with my man every time you see him? He asked Neighborhood. It seemed like he always went out of his way to set Charlie off. Tell him to ask his mama why I always fuck with him, Neighborhood said with a mischievous grin. He plucked a half-smoked cigarette from behind his ear and placed it in his mouth. Let me get a light, young blood. Hey, no smoking in here. Go outside, Lynn shouted from behind the glass. You got it, baby, Neighborhood replied. Walk with me outside. Neighborhood stepped out of the Chinese restaurant, followed by Lil Monk and a reluctant Charlie. I swear these damn chinks kill me, he continued. They set up shop in black neighborhoods, make their fortunes off black dollars, then act like they're better than black people. They are, Lil Monk said flatly. What the fuck are you? Some kind of race traitor? Charlie asked, looking at Lil Monk suspiciously. No, I'm a realist, Lil Monk replied. Look at these stores on the strip. The Arabs own the deli on the corner, the Hispanics own the restaurant up the street, and the Africans own the electronics store. Shit, even the Mexicans are doing their thing with the supermarket. But what do we own in our own neighborhood? Not a damn thing. Niggas are too busy trying to kill each other and tear shit up to worry about ownership in our own communities. Even when we get our hands on a few dollars, we'd rather spend it with someone else. Damn, that's deep, Lil Monk, Neighborhood said. Lil Monk shook his head. Nah, it ain't deep. It's sad. So what you two jokers getting into? If you're looking for a Vic, them boys from up the way already beat you to it, Neighborhood told them. Speaking of the earlier robbery, I heard already. Say, have you seen my dad today? Lil Monk asked. His father wasn't good for much those days, but if he was lucky, he could catch him early and bum a few dollars for a meal before he fucked up whatever money he had. I seen him about 7 o'clock this morning with that thirsty look in his eyes, Neighborhood recalled. That must mean he's broken out here trying to come up, Lil Monk said in a disappointed tone. It would be left to him to come up with a way to eat for the day. Man, I remember back in the days your daddy and Face were getting big money out here in the streets, Neighborhood reminisced. Too bad I can't eat a memory, Lil Monk said. He didn't know who he resented more, the man his father used to be or the man he had become. When Face went to prison, Monk started dancing on the edge, but losing Charlene had pushed him over it. I'm about to go get my chicken wings before Lynn changes her mind. Y'all two gonna be out here for a while? Neighborhood asked. Lil Monk looked over at Charlie and his bruised eye. Nah, we got something we need to take care of right quick. Chapter 6. It seemed like it had taken Persia forever to get to Harlem. She came out of the train station near the park and walked the few short blocks to 7th Avenue, where she was supposed to be meeting her girls in front of Karen's building. There was a cluster of young boys hanging out in front of the store on the corner. As soon as they saw Persia, they started in with the catcalls and whistles trying to get her attention. Persia acted like she didn't hear them and sped up. Someone grabbed her arm from behind and pulled her back. He was a beefy young man who wore his hair in a box-shaped afro. Persia had seen him at her school, but she didn't know him. Excuse you. Persia jerked away. Chill, shorty. I ain't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to get your attention, Berger said in his smoothest voice. There are better ways to get a lady's attention than grabbing her like a mugger, Persia told him. I'm more of the hands-on type, Berger told her. Yo, I be seeing you around my school with them hood rats from 7th. Ain't your name Princess or something? It's Persia, she corrected him. And those hood rats, as you called them, are my friends. Ma, you know you're way too classy to be hanging around those chicks. You need to kick it with me so I can show you how the other half lives, Berger said confidently. Thanks for the offer, but I'll pass, Persia told him and turned to leave. But Berger blocked her path. Yo, all I'm trying to do is get to know you, Berger told her. I said I'm good. Now can you get out of my way so I can get to where I need to be? Persia adjusted her bag. Berger's boys had begun to laugh and bruised his ego. Bitch, you think you all that because you got a Louis bag? This is my fucking block. I'll snap that motherfucker off your shoulder. Moving as fast as lightning, Persia's hand dipped in her bag and came back out holding a small canister of pepper spray. Nigga, you touch me or anything that belongs to me and watch what happens. What y'all over there doing to that girl? Neighborhood came around the corner. He had a half-eaten chicken wing in his hand and his lips were covered in grease. Ain't nothing. I'm just trying to explain to this snooty bitch how things work in the hood, Berger said venomously. Persia placed her thumb on the trigger of the pepper spray. Let the word bitch come out your mouth one more time, and I promise you'll be blinded in Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. Easy now. Neighborhood placed himself between them. Berger, I don't think Face would take kindly to you out here talking crazy to his baby girl. The change in Berger's facial expression said that the name rang a bell in his head. Though Face had been in prison for many years, he was still a legend in the streets, and there were a great many people who still had love for him. You got that, shorty? Berger raised his hands in surrender and began backing away slowly. If I were you, I'd be careful while I was out here. These streets are dangerous, and not everyone is going to care who your father is. Persia kept her eyes on Berger until he disappeared around the corner with his friends. Thanks, she said to Neighborhood. No thanks needed. Your daddy was like family to me. You probably don't remember me, but I've known you since you were born. Ask Michelle about Neighborhood, he said proudly. Persia recalled the name from back when she was a kid, but the man she remembered looked nothing like the man she was speaking to that day. How is Face holding up? Neighborhood asked. He's good. He wrote me a few weeks ago, Persia told him. Glad to hear. The next time you speak to Face, tell him that Neighborhood sends his love. Will do. Persia agreed. Thanks again. She waved and walked across the street to Karen's building. Karen and the others weren't in front of the building, so Persia rang the bell to Karen's apartment. Who is it? A hostile voice came through the speaker mounted on the wall. It's Persia. Is Karen at home? A few seconds passed. Then the door buzzed, allowing Persia to enter. Karen lived in a tenement building that didn't have elevators, so Persia had to walk up the 3 flights of steps to her apartment. She was just about to knock on the door when it swung open, and Karen's uncle Scooter came walking out. Scooter was in his early 30s, but years of running the streets and drug abuse made him look like he was pushing 50. It was hard to believe that at one time he had been getting money as a part of her father's crew. Sup, Persia? Scooter greeted her. Nothing much, Scooter. Is Karen home? She asked. Yeah, she's in the back room. Thanks. Persia stepped around him to enter the apartment. Persia, he called after her. Let me borrow a few dollars until later on. Sorry, I'm broke, Scooter, she lied. Scooter twisted his lips as if he didn't believe her, but he didn't press it. He said, and descended the steps. Persia walked down the long hallway, following the thump of music and the stench of weed to Karen's bedroom. On her door was a poster of the Harlem rap group, The Diplomats. Persia knocked, but she doubted they could hear her over the music, so she invited herself in. Karen was lying across the bed, thumbing through a magazine. She had grown into a beautiful, dark-skinned girl with hips and ass for days, which she flaunted every chance she got by buying her jeans one size too small. Hey, Persia. Ty greeted her from the spot on the floor where she was sitting, fumbling with Karen's portable CD player. She was the newest addition to their crew, and some would say the least attractive. It wasn't that Ty didn't have the potential to be decent, but she came from a dirt poor family, so her gear was never quite up to par, and her hair was always in a ponytail. Damn, do you think it took you long enough? Mika asked, in her signature deep voice. Mika was a short, light-skinned girl who wasn't gorgeous, but cute, and cleaned up very nicely when she wanted to. As usual, she was dressed in tight jeans and Timberlands, which she wore untied. She was the resident thug of their crew, and had a reputation in the hood as an ass-whipping specialist. My stepfather wanted to have one of those talks this morning, Persia said, as if Richard was on her last nerve. She always played the love-hate role around her friends when it came to her mother's husband. Your mom's still married to that white dude? Mika asked. My stepfather isn't white, he's black. Who told you some dumb shit like that? Persia asked. I always hear Karen talking about how your mom married some Peckerwood, so I always assumed he was a white guy, Mika said honestly. Persia turned to Karen. Your two-faced ass is always talking about somebody. Persia, you know that nigga act white as hell. Karen laughed. Damn, Persia, most bitches ain't got no daddy, but you got two daddies. I'd say you doing better than most, Ty said. I only have one father. Rich is just the dude my mother married, Persia said sternly. Fuck all that Maury is or ain't the pappy shit. Did you get the weed? Karen asked. You know I did. Persia tossed the sack she'd gotten from Hamid on the bed. Karen smelled the bag. Damn, this is some good shit. Then stop wiping your nose with it and roll up. I'm trying to get high, Mika said. You mean high up? I'm already on the moon from the last L we smoked. Y'all trying to get too high, Ty added. Ain't no such thing as too high, Karen told her. When Karen's room door swung open unexpectedly, all the girls jumped as if the police were about to rush it. But it was only Karen's mother, Sissy. She looked like an older version of Karen, only her body wasn't as tight. Back in the days, Sissy was the hottest thing smoking on the block. And even though she was getting on in years, she could still give some women half her age a run for their money. Damn, don't you know how to knock? Karen asked with an attitude. As long as I pay the rent in this bitch, I ain't gotta knock, Sissy told her. Why don't you open a window? You got the whole house smelling like Jamaica. Rolling her eyes, Karen got off the bed and cracked the window, letting the morning breeze in. How are you, Miss Sissy? Persia asked. Better than most, Sissy said, with the hint of an attitude. She never really cared for Persia. It wasn't anything Persia had done to her directly, but Sissy always felt like Michelle had stolen Face from her, which was totally untrue. Sissy was Face's jump-off when the mood struck him, but Michelle was his main lady. What are you doing down here in the slums? Nothing, just came to check, Karen, Persia said. All of y'all delinquent asses need to be in school, Sissy said. Is there anything else I can help you with? Karen asked with an attitude. Yeah, give me a cigarette, Sissy demanded. I don't have none, Karen told her. Then go to the store and get some, Sissy shot back. Karen sucked her teeth. Suck your teeth one more time and I'm gonna make you swallow them, Sissy warned. And don't bring me no shorts either. You know I only smoke 100s. Come on, y'all. We gotta get some white owls anyway, Karen told her friends and led them out of the apartment. That bitch gets on my last nerves, Karen said once they were outside. Miss Sissy is a trip, Mika laughed. She always found the arguments between Karen and her mother hilarious. I wish she would trip down a flight of damn stairs, Karen said seriously. Karen, you shouldn't say that. She's still your mother, Persia said. Karen rolled her eyes. Miss me with that shit, Persia. The boy don't love me, and I ain't too fond of her. We can't all be blessed to have Betty Crocker as mothers. Just forget about it. Let's go to the store. She stepped off the stoop. As they were walking down the block, Karen's brother Charlie and someone who looked very familiar to Persia were coming up the block. She had to do a double take when she looked into those big brown eyes and shy smile. It had been years since she'd last seen him, but she'd know her childhood nemesis anywhere. Chapter 7. Princess P. Little Monk had to blink to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Little Monk, oh my God. Persia leapt into his arms and hugged him around his thick neck. Well, I don't know if I can call you little anything anymore. She looked him up and down. Little Monk had grown quite a bit since Persia had last seen him. What you doing on the block instead of in school? Little Monk asked her. Nothing, just chilling with my girls. She motioned toward her friends. Little Monk nodded at them in greeting. Don't get caught up out here following trends. Please, I've got my own mind. Persia waved him off. But forget all that. How have you been? I haven't seen you since... Persia's words trailed off. The last time he and Persia had seen each other was at his mother's funeral. A few years ago, Charlene was gunned down when two men tried to rob her boutique. The police never caught the robbers, but word on the streets was that little Monk's father, Monk, did. For what the men did to the love of his life, he made them suffer in unspeakable ways before having little Monk finish them off. Little Monk had always thought revenge of the men who killed his mother would make him feel better, but it only made things worse. It left a black mark on his soul that he now wore like dead weight. I'm sorry, little Monk, Persia said. It's cool, little Monk said as if it were nothing. In truth, he cried every morning over the loss of his mother. It was a wound that would never heal. How's my uncle, Big Monk? Persia changed the subject. My dad is still around and doing the same shit he's always done, running the streets, little Monk told her. Tell him I miss him and I want to see him. Maybe you guys can come to the house one of these days and have dinner, Persia suggested. Little Monk laughed. You know good and well that for as long as your stepdaddy is living in that house, my dad ain't gonna cross that threshold. He's still on that? Persia asked, surprised. Monk had never been able to come to grips with how Michelle was living in his best friend's house with a new man, while Face was rotting in prison for protecting their family. For killing Tim, he had been given 25 years to life. Michelle offered to wait, but Face knew it'd be selfish on his part to steal her youth like that. So he let her go. He had even given her his blessings when she told him she was thinking about dating again. But Monk never accepted it. He called Richard's presence disrespectful to his friend's legacy, and the only reason he hadn't killed him yet was because Face made him give his word that he wouldn't. You know how my dad is about loyalty, Lil Monk said. Well, if you won't come to the house, maybe we could all get together for dinner at a restaurant, Persia suggested. A look crossed Monk's face. We'll see, Persia. Damn, you're not the only person you see. Give a nigga some love. Charlie spread his arms for a hug. How you doing, Charlie? Persia hugged him. Better now, Charlie said, letting his hand graze her ass. Little Monk caught what Charlie did and wasn't happy about it. Damn, don't smother her. Don't hate on me, 'cause you a big, ugly nigga and I'm pretty, Charlie said jokingly. But Little Monk didn't find it funny. You got a slick mouth, Charlie, and that's why you sporting that shiner now, Little Monk said, with a chill to his voice. Fuck you, Little Monk, Charlie spat. No, fuck that nigga who stole on you, Little Monk fired back. He was ready to stomp Charlie out for trying to play tough in front of the girls, but he had to catch himself. He didn't want to come across as a goon in front of Persia. I see you still walking around looking like Rocky, Karen said to Charlie. Fuck you, tramp, Charlie spat back. Your daddy's a fucking tramp, nigga. He and Karen had the same mother, but different fathers, which explained why one was light and the other dark. The two of them always argued like they hated each other. Instead of talking crazy to me, you need to talk crazy to Burger for him dotting your eye. We're looking for Burger right now. We want to have a chat with him, Little Monk said, with a deadly edge to his voice. At the mention of Burger's name, Persia thought about how he had tried to play her earlier and decided to play devil's advocate. I just saw him on the corner a few minutes ago. Little Monk's face darkened and became a war mask. Good looking out. He began marching to the corner where Burger and his boys were standing. Charlie shot Persia a dirty look before falling in line behind Little Monk. Karen shook her head, watching her brother and Little Monk like she was seeing her loved ones off to war. That was some cold-blooded shit, Persia. She walked off. Mika followed her. What did I do? Persia asked innocently, as if she didn't understand what she had just set in motion. Probably got that boy killed, Ty told her, and followed the other two girls. Persia stood there for a few seconds, looking in the direction that Little Monk and Charlie had gone in to confront Burger. She hoped that his fat ass got everything he was asking for and then some. Smiling devilishly, she walked down the block to join her friends. Persia was almost at the corner when she heard a car horn. When Persia turned and saw the heavily tinted red BMW coasting next to her, she immediately froze. Her heart beat rapidly in her chest, and her breath got short like she was having a panic attack. Flashes of the broken memory she had of the day her father was taken away ran through her mind, and she felt dizzy like she was on the verge of having a panic attack. Slowly, the window rolled down, and Persia heard, "Pardon me, love. Can I talk to you for a second?" When she saw the handsome young man smiling at her from behind the wheel, and not a gun, she breathed a sigh of relief. Persia was always leery of cars where she couldn't see who was in them. The therapist had told her the reaction it caused in Persia was the result of the trauma from witnessing the murder of the man in the car as a child, and encouraged her to try to let it go. That was easy for the therapist to say, because she hadn't been there. She didn't see the blood oozing from the corpse onto the sidewalk at her feet. Her father hadn't been taken away in shackles while she screamed for him not to go. What's the matter? You ain't got no tongue? The driver called to her. Normally, she wouldn't give a dude trying to kick it to her out the window the time of day. But she was so happy he wasn't a killer that she decided to spare him a minute. Yeah, I got a tongue, but a real man doesn't try to get with the lady through the window of a moving car. Persia shot back. The kid behind the wheel said something to the older man in the passenger seat before throwing the car in park and getting out. Persia watched him as he stepped confidently onto the curb. He was definitely easy on the eyes. brown-skinned with soft lips. He was taller than she'd expected, close to 6 feet, and had a clean-shaven face. A baggy red Ralph Lauren sweater with a teddy bear embroidered on the front hung loosely on him. His blue jeans looked new and were tucked neatly behind the tongue of his red Jordans. Persia folded her arms and gave him a disinterested look. "What can I do for you?" "You can start by telling me your name," he said. "Persia," she told him. He let the name roll around in his head. "It suits you." He nodded in approval. "I'm Chucky." He extended his hand. When Persia shook his hand, something passed between them. She wasn't sure what it was, but it made the hairs on her arms stand up. "Nice to meet you, Chucky." She withdrew her hand. "So what's a flower like you doing out here among the weeds?" Chucky asked. "Kicking it with my homegirls," she said. "Well, if all your homegirls are as fine as you, y'all might cause a riot by walking down the avenue. Why don't you hop in the whip, and I can take you wherever you want to go?" Chucky offered. "And what makes you think I hop into cars with strange men? You got the wrong one." Persia turned to walk away, but Chucky stopped her. "My bad, sis. I didn't mean any disrespect. I just think it's a crying shame your feet should have to ever touch the ground." Persia blushed. "Listen to you spitting game. Games are for kids and athletes, and I'm neither. I'm just a man who understands that to get what we want in life, we have to pursue it," Chucky said. "So are you pursuing me?" she asked. He chuckled. "Nah, it ain't that serious. I'm just trying to get to know you, and if a casual friendship leads to something more, that's a bridge we'll cross when we come to it." "So I guess this is the part where you ask for my number?" Persia asked. "No, it's the part where I give you my number and hope you make your next move your best move." He handed her a white business card with his name and number on it. Persia looked down at the card. It was the first time a man had ever given her a business card. "Okay, maybe I'll call you. Shorty, you and I both know you're going to use that number. The question is simply when." "You're a presumptuous one, aren't you, Chucky?" Persia looked him up and down, smirking. "Nah, just confident." "Chucky, we got a situation. Let's bust a move." The older man who was sitting in the passenger's seat called out the window. "I gotta go, Persia, but I expect to hear from you sooner rather than later," Chucky told her before heading back to his car. Giving her a last-minute look, he threw the car into gear and peeled off down the block like he was on his way to a fire. Persia watched Chucky's BMW bend the corner and shook her head. Chucky was definitely a different breed of dude than she was used to dealing with. But the fact that he was different was what had Persia so intrigued. He was cocky without being arrogant, and unmistakably Harlem, just like her dad had been. Persia wasn't sure whether she was going to call Chucky, but she slipped the number in her pocket just in case. "Damn, we leave you alone for 5 minutes and your hot ass is out here trying to throw it at one of the biggest fish in the pond," Mika said, walking up to Persia. Ty followed her, with Karen bringing up the rear, scowling. "Ain't nobody trying to throw nothing. That's just some dude who was trying to kick game," Persia said, as if it were nothing. "Yeah, Chucky has got a lot of game," Karen said. "You guys know him?" Persia asked. "Everybody knows Chucky. He's a part of Pharaoh's crew and Ramsey's protege. That pretty-ass nigga is piping some of everything out north of 110th Street. Mika filled her in. "Well, if he's slinging dick like that, I won't be calling him," Persia said. Her mother had always told her to beware of loose men. Shit, if you ain't gonna call him, you can slide me the number. Chucky is getting long paper out here in these streets, Ty said. He's a drug dealer? Persia asked. Nah, Chucky's what you call a hustler because he gets money a few different ways, Mika said. Wow, he seems so nice and well-spoken. I would have never thought he was out there like that. Persia was surprised. She wasn't naive enough to think that Chucky wasn't into something, being so young and driving an expensive car. But she didn't know he had rank. That's Chucky's gift. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, Ty said. Yeah, that's one wolf can bite me whenever he wants, wherever he wants, Mika declared. Y'all out here riding dick like he's famous. Chucky ain't nobody but another nigga getting money on the strip. Fuck that nigga. Let's go back to my house so we can smoke. Karen stormed up the block, back toward her building. What the hell is her problem? Persia couldn't understand why Karen was suddenly so sour. She'll get over it. Let's catch up with her before this thirsty bitch smokes all the weed without us. Mika followed Karen. Did I do something wrong? Persia asked Ty. It ain't got nothing to do with you, Persia. Karen and Chucky used to fuck around back in the days. But she was more into him than he was into her, and it went sour. Ty whispered as if Karen would hear her from halfway up the block. Look, just forget about it and let's go smoke. She walked off. Persia and Ty caught up with the girls in front of Karen's building. Karen and Mika had been talking about something, but they changed the subject when Persia and Ty joined them. Persia felt the tension and was about to address it when they heard a gunshot. Mika, Karen, and Ty hit the floor, but Persia stood there like a deer frozen in headlights. A few seconds later, a rush of people came running down the block. Karen stopped one of the passing young men and asked him what had happened. Somebody got killed, he told her and kept going. Damn, it's stay jumping in the hood, Mika said, brushing the dirt off the knees of her jeans. Let's go smoke in the house. The block is about to be hot. Karen took out her keys to unlock the lobby door. You think it was somebody we know who got hit? Ty asked. It wasn't until then that Karen thought about her brother Charlie and froze in her tracks. Chapter 8. You ready to handle your business, Charlie? Lil Monk asked him. Charlie looked over at Burger and his friends, who were posted in front of the corner store. Standing among the other teens, Burger looked like a full-grown adult. There are more of them than us, Lil Monk. Maybe we should just wait until we catch him by himself, Charlie suggested. Little Monk turned his dark eyes back to Charlie and rolled his broad shoulders. Somebody gonna bleed today, Charlie. Is it gonna be you or him? Charlie weighed his options. Either way it went, he was gonna end up getting his ass kicked. It was just a question of who would hurt him worse, Burger or Lil Monk. Fuck it. He started toward his enemy. Burger spotted Charlie and stood to meet him. What up, Charlie? Why your lips all twisted like you've been eating lemons? I don't appreciate what you did to my eye, Burger, Charlie told him. Burger looked at Charlie's black eye like he had just noticed it. Oh, did I do that when I socked you? I tell you what. He pulled a few crumpled bills from his pocket and extended one to Charlie. Take this and buy yourself a steak to put on it. He laughed as if he had just told the funniest joke in the world. Charlie looked back at Lil Monk, who was watching him like a hawk and shaking his head in disappointment. A small crowd had started to gather, anticipating violence. If he went out like a sucker, The blabbermouths in the neighborhood would surely put his business in the streets, and what little reputation he did have in the hood would be shot. With nothing else to lose, Charlie decided to put his balls on the table and swung at Burger with everything he had. Burger looked as if he had just been slapped by a woman instead of punched by a young man. He smiled before giving Charlie a vicious blow to the gut that sent him spilling to the ground. Within a heartbeat, Burger and his boys swarmed on Charlie. Lil Monk moved as silently and as swift as the wind when he struck. The first of the boys, who was with Burger, didn't see it coming, but he felt his jaw shatter when Little Monk's massive fist connected with his chin. He went down in a heap, and Little Monk moved to the next target. The second kid managed to put up a weak defense, but Little Monk's heavy fist broke through it and connected with his forehead. His body wobbled once before falling on the ground next to his friend. When Lil Monk turned to the third kid, he threw up his hands in surrender and ran. This left Lil Monk and Burger. The two young men stalked each other, snarling like two pit bulls in their strange war ritual. Burger was a tough guy, but so was Lil Monk, and there wasn't enough room on the hill for both of them. Burger lost his patience first and lunged at Lil Monk. Lil Monk twisted to one side, avoiding Burger's flailing fists and kneeing him in the stomach. Instead of going down, as Lil Monk had predicted, Burger grabbed his leg and started trying to lift him off his feet. Lil Monk was strong, but so was Burger. He knew if he let Burger get him off the ground, the fight would be over. Lil Monk drew his fists back and started firing them into Burger's exposed face like jackhammers. Burger ate the first few punches, but eventually he ended up down on one knee and at Lil Monk's mercy. By now a crowd had formed, watching the two combatants go at it. More than a few of them cheered for Lil Monk to kick Burger's ass, as they had been victims of his bullying. Lil Monk rained blow after blow on Burger's face, long after he had stopped fighting. "Stop it, you're gonna kill him," someone yelled. But Lil Monk was too far gone in his rage to hear them or care. Lil Monk dragged Burger roughly to his feet and wrapped his massive hand around Burger's neck. "I want my face to be the last thing you see before you leave this world." Lil Monk would have surely killed Burger right there in front of all those witnesses and spent the rest of his days in prison, had it not been for someone firing a gun directly behind him. "First one was in the air, but the next one is all yours," Chucky told Lil Monk, pointing a smoking gun at him. He raised his hands in surrender and slowly backed away from Burger's unconscious body. "You got it." "Chucky, put that away before you get us locked up." Ramses tapped him on the shoulder as he stepped onto the curb. Ramses was the older dude who had been sitting in the passenger seat of Chucky's BMW. He was in his mid to late 30s with premature gray hairs that peppered the top of his neat fade. Decorating his ears, wrists, and fingers were diamonds of all colors. Around his neck, he wore a chain that was as thick as a garden hose with a medallion on it that was easily the size of a dinner plate and flooded with diamonds. Ramses had a thing for jewelry. Wearing all that shine was excessive and foolish in the poor neighborhood, but Ramses never worried about being robbed. Only a fool would try to take something from anyone connected to Pharaoh. "Fuck is going on out here?" he asked Burger, who was just getting back to his feet. His face was bruised and the left side of his jaw had swollen to twice the size of his right. "What a fucking embarrassment you are." "The dude snuck me, Ramses," Burger said through his split and bloody lips. "You lying motherfucker." Lil Monk stalked toward him, but a look from Ramses froze him. Burger, I don't want to hear nothing else that you've got to say out of your bloody ass mouth. You're supposed to be out here getting money, and instead you're getting clowned. Ramsey scolded him like a child. First you get robbed, and then you get beat up. And where the fuck is Benny? He's supposed to be out here maintaining order. I haven't seen him since earlier. He slid off with some bitch, Burger told him. Ramsey shook his head. He's supposed to be minding my ice cream shop. But he's off in some pussy? It's no wonder motherfuckers think they can take my shit and beat up my workers. I want to know where the fuck Benny is, ASAP. I'm on it. Chucky whipped out his cell phone. He called Benny's phone 3 times, but it kept going to voicemail. Chucky shrugged, letting Ramses know he couldn't reach him. That nigga better either be dead or in jail, because I promise you, if he's not, he's gonna wish he was, Ramses said. And you, he addressed Lil Monk. Do you know who the fuck I am? Lil Monk nodded. He was still angry and didn't trust his mouth enough to speak. If you know who I am, then you know the penalty for fucking with a member of my team. Either you're a dumb little shit or you just don't respect my authority. Which is it? Lil Monk knew that his next words could mean the difference between life and death, so he chose them very wisely before he spoke. I respect you, Ramses, because I know you're a real nigga, but I can't respect no bully. He cast a glance at Burger. Burger whipped my little man out because he knew he wouldn't fight back. So I whipped Burger out. I got no patience for cowards. He spat on the ground for emphasis. Ramses measured his response. I can't say you're the smartest young dude I've ever come across, but you're honest and loyal. Those are 2 qualities that are hard to come by in this game. You get to keep your life, shorty. All that? This nigga stole on me, and I gotta get mine back. Let me get your pistol, Chucky, Burger demanded. Ramses whirled on Burger and slapped him so hard that he spun around twice before collapsing against a parked car. I've had just about enough of that fake tough shit coming out of your mouth. You talking like you didn't just get put on your back in front of the whole hood. You're not supposed to be out here representing the crew, but instead you're looking like a bunch of pussies. I don't need bitches on my team. I need soldiers. He turned back to Lil Monk. What about you? Are you a bitch too, or are you a soldier? The question caught Lil Monk off guard, so he answered without thinking. Neither one. I'm a gladiator. Ramses laughed. From the beating you put on my boys, I'd say so. So what's up? You want a job, gladiator? Doing what? Lil Monk asked suspiciously. Making sure that the kind of shit that happened today doesn't happen again, Ramses told him. You're a tough little bastard. Then I might have a use for you. To start out, I give you $100 per night to hold my young boys down and make sure nobody else comes through here handing out random ass whippings. You think you can do that? Yeah, I can do that, Lil Monk told him. You better hope so, because from here on out, you're going to be the first line of defense on this strip. Keep my money straight and my people safe. If not, you're going to have to answer to me. You fuck up and you're fired. And I ain't talking about retirement. He made his fingers into the shape of a gun so that Lil Monk understood his meaning. Ramses pulled a large roll of money from his pocket and peeled off 5 20s, which he handed to Lil Monk. Consider this an advance against your first bit of bread. Thanks, Lil Monk said, trying not to sound too excited over the money. In all truthfulness, he was so hungry that he felt if he didn't eat soon, he'd likely pass out. There's plenty more where that came from, shorty. Ramses gave him that. By the way, what's your name? They call me Lil Monk. Ramses looked over at Chucky, whose face was now twisted and angry. He was about to open his mouth and say something, but Ramses motioned for him to be silent. You Monk's kid? Little Monk lowered his head in shame. Yeah, no need to be ashamed, kid. Your pops was a real piece of work back in the days, Ramses told him. Now he's just washed up, Chucky said cruelly. He made it no secret that he didn't care for Lil Monk's father. Lil Monk's eyes flashed rage. For a minute, he thought about trying Chucky, but he wasn't stupid enough to bring his bare hands to a gunfight. Monk had done a lot of foul things to people over the years, and there could have been any number of reasons that Chucky didn't like Monk. But Lil Monk still wasn't comfortable with anyone disrespecting his father in front of him. Pay Chucky no mind, Ramses said, picking up on Lil Monk's anger. Old grudges got no place with new money, and that's what we about to get, some new money. If you're anything like your old man used to be, I'm sure you'll fit right in. Just make sure you're on time for your shift tonight. Okay, I'll see you later, Little Monk said. No, you won't. This is likely the last conversation we'll ever have until I'm sure of how you're built. Benny should have reappeared by tonight, and you'll report directly to him, Ramses told him, walking back toward the car. About then, Persia, Karen, Mika, and Ty arrived on the scene. After what the kids said about someone getting killed, they put two and two together and expected the worst when they arrived on the corner. Thankfully, the boys' words were untrue, and nobody had died. Persia saw Lil Monk exchange a few last-minute words with the man who'd been riding with Chucky before they both climbed back into the BMW and left. She wondered what they'd been talking about, but didn't want to come across as nosy by asking. Charlie was leaning against a car, bruised, dirty, and looking like he had just taken a serious ass whipping. When he saw his sister and her friends coming, he tried to straighten himself up. His signature cocky smile was plastered across his lips, but his face looked like he was having trouble controlling his bowels. We heard somebody got killed and thought it was one of y'all, Ty said. You know real niggas don't die, Charlie boasted, but his body language said different. His hands shook violently as he tried to light the cigarette pinched between his lips. Normally, Karen would have given him grief about it, but she didn't say a word. She simply lit his cigarette for him. Their family wasn't big on showing each other affection, so that was her way of letting him know that she was happy that he was alive. Lil Monk ambled up, looking like he'd been through the ringer. His shirt was filthy and his knuckles bloody and beginning to swell. Now that his adrenaline had worn off from the fight, he began to feel the aches and pains from the brawl. What the hell happened? Mika asked the question everyone wanted to know the answer to. All eyes turned to Lil Monk, wanting an accurate recounting of the story. Lil Monk looked from the bills in his hands to the girls and smiled. I just got my first job. Let's get a bottle and celebrate. It's on me. Chapter 9. How many times do I have to tell you about being so quick to pull that burner in public? Ramses asked Chucky once they were away from the block. You're lucky I didn't blow that little motherfucker's head off. Chucky spat. For as tough as that little dude seems, he might have eaten a bullet, Ramses joked. I see a lot of his old man in him. That's even more of a reason why you should have let me blast him. His daddy ain't shit, and he's gonna grow up to be less than shit. Chucky spat. I think you giving that kid a job is a mistake that's gonna come back to bite you on the ass. Then it's a good thing I'm not paying you to think, Ramses replied. In your mind, Lil Monk is guilty by association, so you aren't seeing the bigger picture. Real niggas are becoming an endangered species in this game. So when you find them that young with that much heart, you don't turn them away. You put them on the payroll. With the proper guidance, in 5 years, that kid is going to be a fucking animal on these streets. Whatever, man. I still say it's a bad idea to do business with that sneaky little nigga. For all we know, it could have been him and those creeps he runs with who been hitting our spots, Chucky said. I seriously doubt that. I know he's got sticky fingers because I've seen him out here up to no good. But that's mostly preying on delivery men and tourists who make the mistake of getting lost on the wrong side of town. He's a petty thief. And it ain't no petty thief who's been running in our spots and taking our shit. They had balls and a helping hand. Ramsey's last remark made Chucky tense. No, man. All of our guys are solid. I think it's just some dudes who got lucky. If it happened once, I'd go with luck. But happening 3 times in a week, that's a little more than luck. Seems like they know which spots to hit and when to hit them. There's some funny shit going on. Speaking of funny shit, you got any idea what rock Benny is hiding under? Chucky shrugged. Your guess is as good as mine. I do remember him telling me about a new chick he met, so he's probably breaking her in. He lied. While we're on the subject of new chicks, what's up with you and that little girl you've been hounding after? Ramses asked. Shit, that's what I'm trying to find out. I'm digging that little fine bitch, Chucky told him. Yeah, she's fine as hell, but she's also a problem waiting to happen. She's a baby. That girl can't be no more than 16 or 17, Ramsey said. Age ain't nothing but a number, Chucky sang. Chucky, let me give you some advice. This ain't some young hood rat whose parents aren't paying enough attention to know their kid is fucking a grown man. The law is gonna be on you like white on rice. Stop being so reckless and use your head, Ramses told him. All right, man. Chucky reluctantly agreed. Ramses was stressing that Persia's age was the reason he didn't want Chucky seeing her. But Chucky wasn't a fool. Ramses had a short memory, but Chucky did not. Regardless of what Ramses said, Chucky planned to go forward with his plans with Persia. Chucky reached in the ashtray and pulled out a half-smoked blunt. No sooner did he place it between his lips and went to light it, Ramses plucked it out of his mouth. What the fuck? Didn't I just tell you about being reckless? Ramses snapped. He rolled down the window and tossed it out. That was hydro! Chucky complained. Foolish young nigga, that was time. What do you think would happen if the police pull us over for some stupid shit like weed and find these guns in the car? I ain't never been to jail a day in my life and don't plan on going, especially because of some simple-minded nigga with a petty drug habit. You got it, Ramses, Chucky conceded. For the rest of the ride to Ramses' destination, Chucky didn't say anything. He just sat and stewed, waiting for Ramses to get his ass out of the car. Don't forget to be on point when the young boy's shift starts in case Benny isn't back, Ramses told him as he was getting out. I got you. And remember what I said about being reckless. You hear me? Yeah, I hear you, Ramses, Chucky said, letting it go in one ear and come out the other. Chucky couldn't wait for Ramses to leave so he could peel off. He waited until he got a few blocks away, retrieved another rolled up blunt. He had been holding that particular blunt until he was alone, so he could savor it. Chucky drove slow, smoking and bobbing to the music in his head. He'd only taken a few pulls and was already halfway to Fried. Ahead, the light had just turned yellow, so Chucky stepped on the gas, hoping to catch it, but ended up floating right through a red light. Immediately after, he saw the flashing blue and red lights of the police car behind him. You fucking jinx, Chucky cursed, thinking of his conversation with Ramses. He scrambled to roll all the windows down and try to air the car out. As he was pulling over, he quickly put the blunt out in the ashtray, then tossed it in his mouth and ate it. It damn near choked him going down, but it beat the alternative. By the time the cop reached the driver's side window, he already had his license and registration in his hand. When he looked up to give the officer his information, all the color drained from Chucky's face. Of all the people he wanted to see, he wasn't one of them. "What's up, Chucky?" Narcotics Detective Wolf James greeted him with a gold-grilled smile. "You ain't been returning my phone calls." Chapter 10. It was past 10 o'clock at night when Persia finally made it home, much later than she usually got in from school. Normally, she would have called if she was going to be that late, but they'd been having so much fun the time had gotten away from her. Little Monk bought a big bottle of E&J brandy and 2 dime bags of chocolate from the Dread. The girls descended on the free weed and liquor like vultures. Little Monk had barely gotten more than 1 cup from the bottle he bought, but he didn't seem to mind. He was enjoying himself just watching everybody else have a good time on his dime. Persia had never been a big drinker, but it seemed like every time she turned around, someone was refilling her cup. When she tried to quit, the girls teased her by calling her a lightweight, so Persia drank more. By the time she headed back to the train station, she could barely walk a straight line. She'd even nodded off on the train and missed her stop, which also contributed to her lateness. Sticking her key in the door, Persia prayed to the teenage mischief gods that her parents would be asleep. As quietly as she could, she eased the door open and slipped inside the house. The living room was dark and quiet, which she took as a good sign. Moving as quietly as a cat burglar, Persia began creeping up the carpeted stairs to her bedroom. She had almost made it to the top when she heard her mother's voice. "Persia Chandler, you bring your tail down here this instant." Sighing heavily, Persia went back downstairs to face the music. She found her mother and Richard in the kitchen, both wide awake. Her mother sat at the kitchen island, scowling at her, while Richard was at the breakfast table on his laptop. He spared her a glance and a disappointed look before going back to whatever he was doing. "Hey, y'all," Persia finger waved. "You're just bringing your ass in the house, and that's all you've got to say?" Michelle asked. "Sorry, I guess. The time got away from me," Persia said in a measured tone. She was concentrating on keeping her words from slurring. "That's obvious, considering you got out of school hours ago. Where were you?" Michelle asked. "Just out with some friends," Persia said. "Which friends?" "I called Sarah's and Marty's houses, and neither of them has seen you today," Michelle informed her. Persia was normally quick on her feet when it came to lying, but the liquor and weed had her brain moving slow, so she told the truth. "Karen and them?" Michelle shook her head. "Now, how did I know that?" she asked sarcastically. "Persia, I don't know why you're so fascinated with these street girls." "They're not street girls, they're my friends," Persia defended them. "Yes, your friends who are always up to no good," Michelle countered. "Now, where were you girls that kept you out until this hour on a school night?" Persia didn't answer. "Persia, if I have to repeat myself, we're going to have a problem," Michelle warned her. Okay, we were in Harlem," Persia admitted. Michelle was on her feet and standing in front of Persia so swiftly that it even surprised Richard. "What did I tell you about staying out of Harlem?" "Mom, I wasn't standing around on the corner. I was at Karen's house the whole time," Persia lied. "I don't give a damn whose house you were at. I told you to stay your hard-headed ass out of Harlem. Do you know what kind of shit goes on up there? It's dangerous." "You're acting as if I don't know how to handle myself. I know how to avoid trouble," Persia said. She had lived a very sheltered life, But her mother and father made sure that she had street smarts from an early age. Persia, what you're not getting is that sometimes trouble comes to find you. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, Michelle explained. I'm a big girl, Mom, Persia insisted. A big girl who's walking around viewing the world through rose-colored glasses. The ghetto is full of predators whose favorite delicacies are naive young girls. I know that Karen and the others are your friends, but you're moving at two different speeds. Those girls are fast and loose, and I raised you better than that. The last thing you need is to get wrapped up in their foolishness and end up somebody's baby mama or the showpiece of a drug dealer. You mean like you were? Persia asked coldly. She wasn't sure what made her say it, but it was too late to take it back. Michelle took a step back. Excuse you. Mom, I don't know why everyone walks on eggshells around me like I don't know who my father was and where we come from, Persia said heatedly. It was like the more she talked, the angrier the liquor was making her. Okay, how about we all just calm down for a second? Richard interjected. He saw the direction the argument was going in, and it wasn't going to be pretty. No, I don't need to calm down. It's about time we had some truth in this house of lies, Persia continued. Michelle closed her eyes and took deep breaths to calm herself. Persia, I can tell you've been drinking because I can smell it on you. So I'm going to act like we didn't have this conversation. If I were you, I'd go to my room and sleep it off. The alcohol had her feeling bold, so Persia kept going. I'm not drunk, Mom. I'm buzzed, so I can't blame it on the alcohol. You just want to shut me up because I struck a nerve. That's the problem with this family now. Everybody would rather sweep things under the rug instead of addressing them. I'm not some silly kid who still thinks Daddy worked construction. He was a drug dealer and a killer. Persia, you need to watch your mouth. You don't know the whole story, so you can't speak on it, Michelle said. She felt her anger rising. Persia folded her arms and looked her mother up and down defiantly. No, I might not know the whole story, but I know the gist of it, Mother. You thumb your nose at street people like we're better than them. But it was a street nigga and street money that bought this house you and your new husband live so comfortably in. What happened next was hazy for Persia. He just remembered waking up on the floor near the refrigerator, watching Richard restraining her mother. Calm down, sweetie, Richard was telling Michelle, while doing his best to keep her from jumping on Persia. How dare she speak to me like that? Michelle raged. I can't believe you hit me, Persia said, picking herself up off the floor. It was the first time she could ever remember her mother raising her hand to her. Michelle had tears in her eyes when she spoke. You're lucky I didn't kill you. Little girl, you have no idea the sacrifices your father and I made to ensure you didn't end up some fucking gutter trash, not knowing where your next meal was coming from. You think your father is sitting in prison now because he wants to be? Everything Faith ever did on them streets was so that we could live a cut above the rest of these motherfuckers you're so damn loyal to. The next time you try to read me, you better damn sure have your facts straight. With tears in her eyes, Persia ran from the kitchen and upstairs to her bedroom. She slammed the door behind her with so much force, the picture of her and her mother at her 6th grade graduation fell off her nightstand. She picked the small frame up and saw that the glass was cracked down the middle, between them. It was broken, just like Persia felt like their relationship was. Persia threw herself across the bed, still fully dressed, and buried her face in the pillow. She normally would have jumped in the shower before bed, but that night she didn't have the energy. Persia felt spent after the argument with Michelle. The things she had said to her mother in the kitchen were things she... Well, y'all, we'll be back.
I got to go out. I got to go shopping and get my stuff started. That's 2 hours and 30 minutes. We'll be back. We're on chapter 11. I got the spot. Salute y'all. Thank y'all for coming in. And I love y'all.